putting your faith in a white person, like someone who you watch, follow, idolize, like that is a risk.
I'm sorry. Very, very sorry.
I don't give her grace and I don't accept her apology.
The woke mob tries to cancel a TikTok star for a truly absurd reason. Nancy Pelosi hits peak delulu. Ben Shapiro gets triggered by a parody. And a TikToker explains why non-binary lesbians are valid. All this and so much more is coming up on today's episode of Brad vs. Everyone, my daily podcast where I take on the craziest news from across the internet and across our politics from a center-right, independent perspective. If you're new here, please do consider subscribing and sticking around, and regardless, do remember to hit that like button and do comment with your thoughts as we go along. I do pick a few comments to respond to in every episode. Now, without further ado, we've got to talk, because TikTok is back on its bullshit, and now they're coming for my queen. I'm a huge fan of something called the Canceled Podcast, essentially a celebrity and TikTok gossip podcast hosted by two queens, Tana Mojo and Brooke Schofield. Well, the second one of the hosts that I just mentioned there, Brooke Schofield, is currently facing a completely unhinged and ridiculous cancellation campaign because, and it always comes back to this, haters have dug up her old tweets from when she was a teenager and are trying to ruin her career over them. The vitriol and the quantity of the discourse and attention this is getting on TikTok is really quite something. Here's one hate video that went super viral just to give you a little taste of what they're saying and how they're saying it.
I don't want to hear what Brooke has to say. Like, genuinely, truly, there is nothing you could possibly say to excuse that shit. Like, I cannot wrap my mind around how evil as a person you have to be. Some of the comments were just blatantly racist, but like the one about Zimmerman and Trayvon Martin, what is actually wrong with you? As someone who paints herself as a, like, you know, she cares about like mental health activism, all this stuff, and then you come up, I literally do not want to hear a single word that you have to say. Like, this is why, like, putting your faith, and I have done this so many times, and I'm actually done, putting your faith in a white person, like someone who you watch, follow, idolize, like, that is a risk. At the end of the day, it's a fucking risk, and if you don't, like, go into that with the expectation that you're going to be sorely disappointed that they've said shit that literally reflects that they hate your people, like, that's on you. Like, I keep seeing videos of, like, I know all the black girls who, like, love Brooke Schofield are so disappointed and hurting right now. I'm like, I'm not hurting. I'm mad. I'm not disappointed. I'm disappointed, not surprised. Like, I don't want to hear what she has to say.
Now, before I give you my opinions or get into the discourse over all this, I want to read you the actual tweet so you know exactly what we're talking about, and you can decide for yourself whether somebody's life really should be ruined over these posts. Back in 2012, when Brooke was 16, she tweeted that she had nappier hair this morning than most African Americans. She also repeatedly used the F slur, referring to gay people, to refer to friends in her online posts. She also joked in one tweet, "What do you call a Mexican baptism? Bean dip." Meanwhile, in 2013, when Brooke was 17, she tweeted, referencing the infamous killing of Trayvon Martin, "Guarantee if George Zimmerman shot a white guy, this wouldn't even be a story. Newsflash, this wasn't a crime of racism, it was self-defense." There are a few other posts, but you get the idea. Brooke, now 27, is very much a good liberal who supports the Black Lives Matter movement, hosted the Black Square, and all that. That hasn't stopped TikTok after TikTok after TikTok from tarring her as racist and trying to destroy her career over the last week because of these resurfaced old posts. Finally, over the weekend, Schofield apologized for her tweets in a video, which I'll show you an excerpt from now.
Obviously, by now you guys have seen the tweets that are circulating around. They, unfortunately, are not fake. Those are real tweets, like real things that I said. First of all, I want to acknowledge that I feel the same way about them that you do. I think they're so disturbing, they're wrong, they're horrible, and they're disgusting. Of course, I do appreciate the people who are coming to bat for me and, like, saying, like, you know, it was so long ago and, like, she's grown and stuff, but, like, it doesn't matter. Like, it literally does not matter. They are horrible. I want to talk about particularly the Trayvon Martin, George Zimmerman situation. Try not to be so emotional because I don't want it to seem like it's like a sympathy thing at all. I also don't want to blame anybody else at all. And so I'm trying like to be really careful about that. I just want to explain like and give some context into like my mindset at the time, because I have seen like some comments today that are like, well, no shit, she's racist, like white nepo baby, like a little like spoiled brat, like, and that was not my situation. And my parents were addicts, so I was adopted by my grandparents when I was like 10, and I grew up with them from that point on. And as is true for a lot of grandparents, they're a little bit less progressive than a lot of us are now. And my grandma has dementia, so it was really just like me and my grandpa. And he is a very, very right-wing conservative man, okay? It was like my household was literally just Fox News all the time, Rush Limbaugh, like if you guys know who that is, like playing literally all day long through the house. And that was just like the only thing ever that I had been exposed to. Whatever I heard, I passed on. I'm sorry, very, very sorry to anybody who is hurt by the tweets, because obviously they are very hurtful. Like a lot of it is just like what, like why would I even say that? And I apologize for not having said something sooner. I love you all so much, and obviously I know that there are some people who are just like not gonna care for me anymore, and like I understand that. I need you to know that like is not how I think, that is not what I believe, and I am 27 years old now. I've had so much time to like learn and grow and like formulate my own opinions, and they are nothing like they were when I was 17, 18 years old.
Naturally, her critics on TikTok accepted her apology. Just kidding. It went over like a fart in church, with many accusing her of weaponizing white women tears and doing too much explaining. Many people in the comments said, well, when I was 16, I knew better. I knew not to be racist. Here's a sampling of how TikTok responded to her apology.
I don't give her grace and I don't accept her apology because Brooke Schofield and I are the same age. I think I'm a few months older than her, but same age, 1996. And in 2012, I was 16 and I was posting stupid stuff on Facebook and getting into bit snap wars with my friends. Yeah, that's embarrassing. But it's also completely different than actively being racist on the internet. At 16 years old, you definitely know better. Women like her are dangerous overall to our society.
It remains to be seen how this will affect her long-term career, but we have seen enough for me to say definitively that this cancel campaign is completely ridiculous, and frankly, is coming from a dark and toxic place. First and foremost, Brooke never hurt anyone. The random racially insensitive tweets she posted as a teenager were essentially seen by almost no one, and almost all received 0 likes. She was a dumb teenager with a mushy, underdeveloped brain who probably watched too much South Park. There were no victims at the time. Nobody's come forward and say, she bullied me in high school, she was racist to me. No, she posted random crap on the internet that nobody saw because she was dumb and didn't know any better. Then she grew up. She evolved her thinking, and nobody should be defined for life because of the stupid things they said or believed as a teenager. While many of the TikTok mob participants may have grown up in rich liberal families on the coast somewhere and had been taught their anti-racist ABCs from a young age, Brooke, frankly, grew up as white trash. It is entirely understandable that she had some ignorant views and that she parroted some things she should not have said. The context that she explained in her apology is really important, actually. She was a young, impressionable person in a household where the only thing she was exposed to was Rush Limbaugh and Fox News. And I don't know a lot about the details of the case. It's before my time in politics, but that was very much the argument that was made in mainstream right-of-center circles, that George Zimmerman was defending himself. So she just uncritically parroted that. We might look back now and say that argument was wrong or insensitive or untrue. I barely know anything about it. I was a child at the time. But it's not exactly some insane crime that a 16-year-old parroted something she heard on the only media and news that she was exposed to in her household. Doesn't make her a terrible person for life or reflect some fundamental character flaw that must still be with her today. If anything, in another way, it's kind of a testament to her character that over time she cast off the beliefs she was raised in and formed her own views and her own identity, A lot of people never do that. More importantly, guys, and this is the part where I just want to pull my hair out with frustration, Brooke is a fucking gossip podcaster. She is not a politician. She does not wield political power. She is not a police officer or a judge or somebody who will be wielding power and deciding the fate of Black people's lives. She makes TikTok videos to trending sounds and gossips about celebrities on YouTube. It's honestly hard for me to put into words how absurd it is, this notion that because she said insensitive things as a teenager, she should be precluded her entire life from working as a gossip podcaster. Yet nonetheless, this perspective is embraced by so many people on TikTok, and it leaves absolutely no room for grace, growth, or redemption, which is just horrible and totally counterproductive if your goal, like mine, is a society where racism ceases to ultimately exist. Because if people are defined for life, if it will always be held against them, the ignorance of their past or the dumb things they said, there's no incentive for them to really grow or change if they're just going to be hated and shunned no matter what. And frankly, this whole thing seems motivated to me. It seems motivated by resentment. Brooke has been having a moment lately. She just went super viral for exposing this pop star Clinton Kane, and her podcast, the Canceled Podcast, is one of the most popular podcasts in America. And let's be honest, guys, a lot of people hate seeing other people succeed when they themselves aren't succeeding in their own lives. And none of the people who dug up her old tweets or have made videos calling her out and trying to cancel her are actually people who grew up around her and were hurt by her or affected by her behavior or her words. Not a single one of them is. It's a bunch of nobodies, including a whole lot of woke white saviors trying to virtue signal, who've seen her success in recent months and have decided that it would make them feel better about their own inadequacies if they could ruin her career and knock her down a peg or two. And if you ask me, guys, grown adults engaging in this kind of petty and vindictive behavior is far more embarrassing and far more disqualifying than having said or believed ignorant things as a young teenager. And now, let's talk about Nancy Pelosi, because the former Speaker of the House and still a Democratic representative from California just said one of the craziest, most galling partisan things on television that I've heard in some time, and that's saying something. Let's take a listen.
To consequential president of the United States, a Mount Rushmore kind of president of the United States. Want to know what comes next?
That he belongs up there on Mount Rushmore. Lincoln and Joe Biden.
But you got Teddy Roosevelt up there, and he's wonderful. I don't say take him down, but you can add...
No way. Yes, guys, Nancy Pelosi actually suggested that Joe Biden should be added to Mount Rushmore alongside the likes of Abraham Lincoln as one of America's greatest presidents. You have got to be freaking kidding me, y'all. Here's the thing. I am not one of these people who thinks Biden is like the worst president ever or anything like that. But he has certainly not been one of America's best presidents. I could talk about it for hours, all the things that have gone wrong or gone poorly under the Biden administration, but here are just a few examples. 13 U.S. soldiers and service members were killed directly because of Joe Biden's mistakes as president. He completely botched in his role as commander-in-chief the withdrawal of U.S. forces from Afghanistan. He pulled our military out before evacuating our citizens and our personnel, then had to send them back into a chaotic situation where then 13 were killed. It was totally inept, total incompetence that led to American heroes losing their lives in a situation that could have easily been avoided. Our politics is so crazy now that we kind of even forget that that happened in most of our discourse, but for any other president in the more normal time, it would have been the darkest stain, the thing he'd be remembered for forever. Yet we've all just kind of moved on. Another huge lowlight of the Biden presidency has been inflation. His presidency has coincided with a huge increase in inflation that bankrupted American families. And no, it's not entirely his fault, but that is kind of how we judge presidencies. We give them credit or blame for the things that happen under their watch. And some of his policies did absolutely worsen inflation, like the massive, wasteful, multi-trillion-dollar stimulus bill he passed after taking office, even though the economy had largely recovered. And then, to add insult to injury on the inflation question, while Americans were being bankrupted by this inflation that he worsened, he passed a completely unrelated climate change and IRS funding bill that was just a bunch of stuff the Democrats were hoping to accomplish anyway, slapped the name Inflation Reduction Act and passed it, even though literally Bernie Sanders and even many people on that side were admitting it wasn't going to do anything about inflation, just exploiting the issue to pass unrelated Democratic partisan priorities and slapping Americans in the face. It was horrible. Plus, under Biden's watch, and again, not saying this is entirely his fault or that he could have necessarily prevented this, but presidents are credited for things that happen under their watch, 2 major international conflicts involving the U.S. broke out. I could go on and on and on, but I feel like that alone is enough to say probably not one of America's great legendary historical presidents. And that's not even getting into, the whole cognitive decline issue. Of course, there have been positives of the Biden presidency as well. He passed a bipartisan infrastructure bill that a lot of people have been trying to do for a long time. The unemployment rate has actually been very good, very low for most of his presidency, and other things as well. But to say what Nancy Pelosi said there requires a level of delusion that I didn't honestly know was possible. Up next, Ben Shapiro just got triggered over an obvious parody account. I'm going to give you the context on this one, guys, first, and then I'll get into what Ben had to say. So a month or 2 back, I discovered an account called The Bold Lib. This woman who makes content that is clearly satirical, poking fun at kind of a caricature of what woke liberal women are like these days. Here's her most viral video, her little song about being a bold lib.
Being child-free threatens the patriarchy. We don't need no man. We can do everything he can. Busted! I'm a bold lib. Taylor's on my side. I'm a bold lib. MAGA starts to cry. What? I'm a bold lib. And Taylor's on my side. Yeah, she is. I'm a bold lib. MAGA starts to cry.
Now, the bold lib, whose real name is Angela Belcamino, posted another video that's gone super viral on X. It has 38 million views, where she said, "Imagine being 42, child-free, stress-free, and being this happy. The right hates this." Ben Shapiro decided to react to this video and apparently didn't pick up on the fact that it's obviously satire, or that her account is obviously satire. Here's what he had to say.
The Republicans just play these people on a loop. Play Angela Belcamino on a loop. Another one of these single female influencers who's declaring her allegiance to Kamala Harris. She says, "Imagine being 42, child-free, stress-free, and being this happy. The right hates this." This is supposed to be a rip on J.D. Vance, suggesting that actually happiness very often lies in family and children. Here she is dancing around like a 16-year-old girl, but she's 42 and lonely. She's dancing around by herself, wearing a cutoff t-shirt and like short jean shorts. This entire tweet is just the Nathan Fielder tweet. Here I am having an amazing time with my friends. They're just off camera. That is what this is. It's amazing. But there is a strategy. It's not by accident the Democrats are doing this. It's not by accident that Kamala Harris is doing this. They're steering directly into the single female vote. That's why, again, they're focusing on J.D. Vance. It's why they're focusing on abortion, because that's the only advantage they have in this election cycle. Most people don't want to hear Angela Belcamino lecture them about the joys of single living.
Oh my gosh, Ben, it's a parody account. She literally calls herself the Bold Lib, and if you'd scrolled their feed for more than a few minutes, you would have realized she's obviously satirical, obviously over the top. So to react to her and not point that out alone is a big L, and I would have hoped your producers would check that stuff is real before you play it on your show, but yikes, I guess. But regardless, to try to connect that to some broad political analysis about the Democrats when the thing you're reacting to is literally a right-wing person doing satire. And then, of course, she doubles down on it, too. She, says, Ben Shapiro's mad because I'm happy and free and all these tweets and stuff. She is genuinely hilarious, but she is right-wing. She's friends with a bunch of right-wing figures and is like a low-key, it is a bit, all right? It's a well-done bit, so it's a little bit hard to distinguish from reality if you don't look at it very closely, but that's what you're supposed to do when you're a political commentator, when you host a show, is look at things a little bit closely before bringing them to your audience and before low-key kind of embarrassing yourself. And more importantly, though, even if her video wasn't satire, like, why are you commenting on it? Why is the right playing into this? They're playing into this narrative that they hate childless women, that they're sexist, that they're out of touch, by actually getting mad about if a woman did just post a video of herself saying, I'm childless and I love it and I'm having fun. Who cares? Keep it moving. Why would you dedicate your time to that or your outrage? Like, it doesn't affect you. She's just living her life. I mean, that's the broader point here that I also think is so bizarre, that the right really is going down a strange path on a lot of this gender stuff. And also, conservative media can just be downright sloppy sometimes. You guys let me know what you think. Do you find her satire funny? Were you surprised that Ben didn't get the joke? Let me know in the comments below. And now, it's time for Brad versus TikTok, my daily segment where I take on the craziest ideas from the Clock app.
Pronoun of the day is slug, slugs.
If you're new here, don't forget to subscribe and stick around. Do hit that like button to reward my suffering as we go along. And now, let's hear one TikToker explain why non-binary lesbians are valid somehow.
Wow, this is going to be a long one. So yeah, I'm a non-binary lesbian, and yes, non-binary people can be lesbians. They have been lesbians for literally hundreds of years. There are lots of books about lesbians dating back in history and their varying gender expressions and identities throughout that history. There are so many trans people throughout the entire world and throughout the entire history of the world. This is not a latest trend. This is not a latest fad. Non-binary people have existed for thousands and thousands of years on many different continents throughout the world. First of all, so how did they even know that they were non-binary if they didn't just feel it inside that they were not gender conforming? So here's the thing, a non-binary person can be a lesbian because a lesbian can be whatever they want. If you genuinely identify as a lesbian, who am I to say that you're not allowed to be a lesbian because of your gender? If you're a trans man, of course you're allowed to be a lesbian because I don't care what you identify as. I'm going to respect you because you're just a person, and I'm going to respect a person as long as they're nice to me. And you know what? I respect people even when they're not nice to me because it's the basic human decency thing to do, to believe someone at face value. So basically, anybody's allowed to be a lesbian as long as they just believe hard enough, like Tinkerbell taught us back in the day. Sure, can a cisgender man be a lesbian? I don't know. I've never met a cisgender man who sincerely identified as a lesbian, but I'm sure if one popped up, I would just say, okay, dude, and then play Mario Party with them, because that's what we do with people when they have confounding ideologies that disagree with ours or our previous conceptions of the world. We don't deny them their ability to think for themselves and identify for themselves. We just play Mario Party with them.
So there's a lot there to unpack. First, again, I've said it before and I'll say it again. The very premise of a non-binary lesbian is incoherent and nonsensical. A lesbian is a woman who loves other women. A non-binary person is somebody who's claiming they're neither a woman nor a man, neither male nor female. You cannot be both. The math does not math. And I have to laugh at this notion that non-binary is something that has existed for thousands and hundreds of years. No, babe, y'all literally made it up in like 2014. Blair White first pointed this out, but look at the Google Trends chart. There's literally zero mention of it prior to about 2014. Now, are there some historical things where people did identify outside of a gender binary? Sure, but they are not the same thing as modern non-binary whatsoever. And I cannot explain to you how irritating I find it that woke people are now saying a lesbian can be anything, because simply put, if a word means everything, it also means nothing. This person might not realize it, but they are, whether they realize it or not, eroding gay and lesbian rights, eroding the very basis of our identities that was hard fought for to achieve acceptance. And again, this approach baffles me. Well, who am I to question anybody's identity? I'll just accept anything. I can't say what their truth is. It doesn't affect me, so whatever. No, you can say, because you're a thinking, or at least you're supposed to be, a thinking individual with rationality. So, by your logic, you can't tell if I'm a cat or not. If I say I'm a cat, who are you to say? Be so f***ing for real, my dude. Now, I actually like what this person had to say about getting along with people with different views and being respectful and coexisting and accepting that they feel some way about themselves and their own views and values. But there's a huge difference. There's a huge logical leap here between coexisting and being respectful to someone, which you should always do, and affirming what they believe, which is what this creator is telling us we should do. So if somebody comes up to me and tells me they identify as a non-binary two-spirit cat fairy, I'm still going to treat them with kindness. I'll probably try to avoid using pronouns for them to not make them actively uncomfortable, but I'm not going to call somebody fey fairs or me/ow or whatever because I'm not going to affirm and embrace ideas I think are wrong. And that's the other part of this that just blew my mind when this person said, believing someone at face value is the decent thing to do. What? Maybe this is a good example of what I always talk about. When you're too open-minded, your brain falls out. But we don't, and it has never been the expectation that we should just blindly believe each other all at face value, because that's what it means to be respectful. No, actually, we're supposed to be critically thinking individuals who go about the world with scrutiny and assess things and decide whether we put stock in them or not just blindly accepting anything anyone tells us at face value. I mean, this is a toddler's approach to the world. And I have to say, individuals like this are doing a real disservice to actual transgender people who've experienced gender dysphoria from a very young age and just want to pass and live as if they are the opposite sex as their biology. That is a real thing that has a long history and is documented and is a medical condition. And those people do deserve empathy and respect and accommodation within reason. But you're actually doing them a massive disservice by conflating with that an actual experience this made-up, fake, non-binary thing that's totally incoherent and was simply just concocted a few years ago. In fact, some of the most interesting and forceful critics of the non-binary fad have actually been some trans people and trans creators themselves. And I think that speaks volumes about the seriousness of this advocacy. You guys let me know what you think. Am I wrong? Can you be a non-binary lesbian? Should we all just accept everything anyone says and all play Mario Kart together? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to hit that like button to reward my suffering. And now, before we wrap up today's show, I'll read a few of your comments from the last episode. One person said, guys, he fixed the scratch on the wall. Praise you, Brad. You are truly a man of the people. So I'm glad you're happy, but I have to be honest, I did not actually fix the scratch on the wall. I just applied an effect to the camera to blur the background a little so you couldn't see it. Sorry. Another person said, there is a trash bag brand called Glad, and I think this describes that nonprofit perfectly. Another person said, Brad got so tired of everyone dissing his background. He made it blurry. LMAO, just kidding. Yeah, that's not why. I just thought it looked kind of good, so let me know if you like it or not. Another person says, hello, Brad here, Christian viewer here. In your previous video, you mentioned that you are watching House of the Dragon right now, and it made me wonder if you ever thought about expanding to the fiction-centric side of the internet so you could talk about the games, movies, shows, comics, etc. that you like, ones you don't, what you took away from them, and even maybe which ones had the most profound impact on your life. You know, this is an interesting idea, but I have to say I'm not the most artistically inclined, and so I'm pretty skeptical of my ability to analyze art in a deeper, meaningful way, and I feel like I need to stay in my lane at least a little bit and stick about the stuff that I know a lot about, which is politics and economics. So maybe I'll do a little bit of that at some point, but I'm also not a huge consumer of culture. I'll watch 1 or 2 shows a month or something, but I'm not somebody who's just keeping up with everything that's trending and coming out on Netflix and all this stuff. That's not really me anyway. So another person said, Dear Brad, please take this from a good place and not being an asshole, but Zurich is pronounced with a K, not like rich, and Canes is pronounced like can as in tin can, not canis. I don't like to correct, but I would want someone to tell me if I had spinach in my teeth. Keep up the hard work and the sanity. Love you and your perfect white teeth and complexion. Oh, thank you. And no, you guys are right. A lot of you pointed out my trash pronunciation. I definitely should have checked some of that stuff before I read that from the article. My bad on that one, guys. All right, everybody. That is it for this episode of the Brad vs. Everyone podcast. Thank you so much for joining me. Do remember to hit that like button before you go. Make sure you're subscribed. I would love to to hit 150K subscribers by the end of August, by the end of summer. That's my goal. Would love for you to help me get there. And do comment with your thoughts. I do read the comments, and I'm curious for you guys, for your opinions on some of the stuff we covered today, which was a little bit spicy and more varied than usual. And with that, we'll talk again tomorrow.